Imagine you're staring at a completely flat canvas. It's
Yeah.
covered in this chaotic collision of green and yellow scraped paint.
Right, just a total wall of color.
Yeah, exactly. But then suddenly you realize you aren't looking at a flat surface at all.
You're peering into a space.
You're peering into a sprawling three-dimensional cavern. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is a visual investigation into, well, the architectural mechanics of optical illusions and abstract art.
It's a great topic.
It really is. We are taking a single, incredibly complex painting by Anupam Gupta, an artist also known as Muchu, and we are going to decode the deliberate systems hiding behind what, initially just looks like pure unadulterated chaos.
Absolutely.
By the time we finish this deep dive, you'll have a specialized toolkit for how to, read abstract environments.
Yeah.
So you don't have to feel intimidated by the lack of a recognizable subject.
And honestly, that intimidation factor is usually the biggest hurdle for people, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because when we look at a landscape or a portrait, our brain immediately knows what to do with the information. We identify the horizon line.
Right, or the figure in the center.
Exactly, or where the light source is coming from. But when you strip away all those recognizable landmarks, the brain just goes into overdrive trying to make sense of the visual data.
It's like sensory overload.
It is. So the secret here is shifting your perspective. Instead of searching for a recognizable object, you have to try identifying the internal logic of the painting itself.
Okay, I like that, the internal logic.
Yeah, and Mushu's work is just a masterclass in this. He manipulates color, texture, and light to construct this breathing world that really just operates by its own distinct physical laws.
So let's pull the lens all the way back first and look at the macro level impact of this canvas.
Good idea.
If you are visualizing this with us, the very first thing that hits you is a severe, almost violent color clash.
Yeah, it's intense.
We aren't dealing with a soothing, harmonious blend here. There is this profound turf war happening across the entire space between two very aggressive color families.
It is such a striking palette. You have these deeply earthy, grounding ochres.
Those are the heavy yellow browns.
You're right, the heavy yellow browns. And they are vying for dominance against these incredibly vibrant, jewel-toned emerald greens.
And it feels so tense.
It does, and the tension you're reacting to comes from the fact that they fiercely compete for the exact same real estate, but they never surrender their individual identities.
Yeah. That's definitely the most jarring part of looking at it. In a standard landscape, if an artist wants to paint a forest canopy, they might, blend those yellows and greens.
You create soft gradients.
Exactly, a sense of natural transition.
Yeah.
But here, the ochre and the emerald are completely unblended. They just sit as distinct, overlapping, jagged shapes.
Because blending them would fundamentally change the psychological temperature of the piece.
How so?
Well, if you overmix a vibrant yellow and a deep green, you risk creating this murky, muddy midtone that just flattens all the energy.
Yeah, I see. It loses its punch.
Exactly. So by keeping them fiercely segregated, Muchu creates visual friction. The eye is constantly bouncing between the high-frequency vibration of the emerald and the heavier, denser gravity of the ochre.
So it mimics the complexity of nature without, actually imitating its literal form.
That's a perfect way to put it, yeah.
It honestly reminds me of looking up at a dense, sunlit autumn forest canopy, but experiencing it entirely through a fractured kaleidoscope.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You get that organic sensation of leaves and light, but the delivery mechanism is highly geometric. But then, to completely disrupt that whole forest canopy feeling, there is a massive anomaly on the far left side of the canvas.
Yes, the red sweep.
Yeah, this fiery, aggressive vertical sweep of red and orange.
That vertical sweep completely recontextualizes the entire composition.
When I look at that warm red and orange sweep, it feels like a heavy retaining wall to me. Yeah, it feels like an architectural barrier designed to just keep all that chaotic green and ochre energy trapped in the center. It actually blocks me out. Is it supposed to be a barrier, or is it an entry point?
Well, it definitely functions as a boundary, but you have to consider how human optics actually process different wavelengths of color.
Okay, optical physics. Hit me.
So warm colors, particularly highly saturated reds and oranges, optically advance. They literally appear to push forward out of the picture plane toward the viewer.
Oh, wow.
Conversely, cool colors, like those deep emerald greens, naturally recede into the background.
Okay, so they push back.
Right. So rather than just acting as a flat retaining wall, that red sweep acts more as an architectural foreground pillar.
So it's forcing a perspective shift on you.
Yes. It creates an immediate sense of scale and depth. Because that red pillar is rushing forward to meet your eye, you suddenly realize you have to look past it.
Or around it.
Exactly, look around it to access the cooler, receding green space in the center. It holds the energy of the painting from spilling off the left edge while simultaneously plunging the center of the canvas backward into deep space.
That is so cool. You mentioned that architectural foreground, which naturally brings up how he's actually constructing these spatial relationships on the physical canvas itself.
The technique, yeah.
He's obviously relying heavily on a palette knife here. But the specific way he's dragging the paint to create those translucent scrapes is completely warping my sense of depth.
Right.
So we really need to talk about the architecture of this texture.
We do, because the physical application of the paint is doing just as much heavy lifting as the color theory here.
Right.
When you move away from the soft bristles of a traditional brush and utilize a metal palette knife, you change the entire topography of the surface.
You get those stark, flat, sharply angled blocks of color.
Exactly. The paint is being laid down in extreme dualities.
You have these thick, opaque patches where the paint is just slathered on like mortar.
Like frosting almost, yeah.
Right. And right next to them, you have these incredibly thin, translucent smears where the knife has dragged the pigment so violently that the underlying layers shine right through.
And you can see bright emerald green scraped so thinly over a base layer of ochre that the yellow physically alters the temperature of the green sitting on top of it.
Wow.
It's like a transparent film. You are seeing the literal physical history of the artist's hand, the exact pressure and velocity of the knife scraping across the grain of the canvas.
But, okay, this is where I hit a massive paradox when I try to decode the mechanics of this space.
What's the paradox?
Well, a palette knife is, by its very design, a flattening tool, right?
Sure.
It's used to smash paint down, spread it out, and shear off the excess. So I'm really struggling to understand how a tool engineered to flatten things makes this painting feel like a deep, cavernous ravine.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Because when I look at the surface, I don't see flat smears. I see a massive chasm of three-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm.
How is he doing that?
That paradox is exactly the core of the illusion Muchu is orchestrating. It entirely relies on how our visual cortex interprets opacity versus transparency.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So when the knife lays down a thick, totally solid opaque block of paint, your brain registers a physical barrier.
Like hitting a wall.
Right. It establishes a definitive surface level, essentially telling your brain, this object is in the immediate foreground, you cannot see past it.
It's an impenetrable object in the space.
Precisely. But when that same knife drags a thin, translucent layer of paint directly adjacent to, or even partially over, that opaque block, the transparency triggers a completely different cognitive response.
What does the brain do with transparency?
Your brain interprets transparency as atmospheric depth. We are conditioned by nature to read see-through layers as environmental mediums.
Oh, like looking through deep water.
Yes, or heavy fog, or drifting smoke.
So even though the physical distance on the actual canvas between the thick opaque paint and the thin transparent paint is like barely a fraction of a millimeter,
Barely anything at all.
my brain perceives it as miles of atmospheric depth.
Exactly. And the sharp edge created by the metal blade amplifies the deception.
Because it's so clean.
Yeah, a soft, blended brush stroke suggests a gradual curve, but a razor-sharp scraped edge tells the brain that two distinct geometric planes are overlapping in physical space.
That is wild.
The flatness of the tool is the very mechanism that makes those planes so distinct, tricking your eye into seeing a cavern rather than just a flat stain on a cloth.
Okay, so if you are following us into this scraped cavern, right, and your eye is sliding all over these sharp overlapping planes, you eventually hit a wall.
Or a couple of walls.
Yeah, or rather, you hit two very specific marks that refuse to follow the rules of the chaos around them.
The anomalies.
Yes, amid all these scraped layers, there are two distinct visual anomalies that stop the eye dead in its tracks.
They really are completely disruptive to the surrounding topography.
The first one sits near the center left. It's this curved, highly segmented pattern. I mean, it feels incredibly mechanical, almost like a zipper or a ladder or like the heavy treads of a tank.
It's very industrial looking.
Yeah, it's a rhythmic series of horizontal dashes following a deliberate curve stamped right into the green and yellow.
And then there's the second mark.
Right, over on the middle right side, there was this incredibly dark, perfectly isolated dot. It's just sitting there against the lighter green background.
In a field composed almost entirely of chaotic, scraped geometric blocks, These structured, highly deliberate shapes, the zipper and the dot, they just feel entirely alien.
They do. And instead of biological elements like, say, a pupil or a spine, they feel more like typographic punctuation marks to me.
Typography, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, like to me, that heavy black dot operates exactly like a period at the end of a long sentence.
Oh, I see.
It tells my wandering eye exactly where to stop scrolling and just rest. And the zipper shape feels like a hyphen or, an ellipse, providing this rhythmic, structural counterpoint to the randomness of the scraping.
I think the typographic analogy perfectly captures their function, because in the psychology of abstract visual art, the artist really has to manage the viewer's cognitive load.
Meaning they have to keep the viewer from getting a headache.
Basically, yeah. A uniformly chaotic field of scraped paint is exhausting to process. If every single element on the canvas is clashing, shifting, and sliding backward into deep space, the viewer's eye never gets a moment of respite.
It's just too much work for the brain.
Right, and eventually the eye simply gives up and skitters right off the edge of the canvas.
And the viewer walks away feeling frustrated without even really knowing why.
They just feel overwhelmed. But by planting these highly structured anomalies, Machu is throwing the viewer a life raft.
A place to anchor.
Exactly. When your eye catches that heavy, dark dot, it locks on, it anchors you. These elements stabilize the entire composition by introducing undeniable intentionality.
It's like proof that someone is driving the car.
Yes. They signal to your brain that despite the surrounding turbulence, an architect is in control, deliberately curating your journey through the space.
Wow. Okay, so we've mapped out the color tension, we've looked at the deep physical texture of the knife, and the anchors that hold our gaze.
All the individual pieces.
Right. And when you synthesize all of those distinct mechanics, you arrive at the final overarching effect of the painting, which is easily its most disorienting feature.
The internal glow.
The internal glow. The entire canvas seems to vibrate with what looks like prismatic internal lighting.
The concept of prismatic light is really the ultimate payoff of this whole visual system we've been talking about.
It really is. I mean, if you look closely at how those bright yellows and ochres slice through the darker emerald greens and deep reds, the intersections are so brutally sharp.
It's not soft lighting at all.
No, it completely abandons the look of wet paint and instead mimics the physics of light hitting a prism. It has this aggressive, shattered glass quality, fracturing into distinct beams of illumination.
And if you take that observation down to the bottom edge of the painting,
Okay, looking at the bottom.
as your eye travels downward, you'll notice the intense, highly saturated colors slowly transition into lighter, muted, almost faded tones.
Oh yeah, they wash out a bit.
It perfectly replicates the visual degradation of light filtering down through a dense, murky medium.
Like sunlight trying to reach the bottom of a deep lake.
Yeah.
It loses its intensity the deeper it goes.
Exactly. The result is an environment that feels intrinsically luminous.
It's glowing.
Right. The painting doesn't appear to be a flat object reacting to a spotlight in a gallery. It appears to be generating its own internal power source.
It feels exactly like standing inside a pitch-black ancient cathedral and looking up at a brilliantly backlit stained glass window.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
The room around you is heavy and oppressive, but the window itself is vibrating with trapped, fractured light. The thick, opaque patches of paint act like the heavy lead framing of the window, and those scraped, translucent yellows and greens act as the illuminated glass itself.
The stained glass comparison highlights the reliance on extreme contrast. The illusion of brilliant light is entirely dependent on the heavy, dark, opaque structures surrounding it.
Okay, building on that, because of those bright yellows cutting so violently through the darker greens, I feel like the source of this light is actually buried deep behind the canvas.
Like it's pushing through.
Yeah, it feels like a furnace operating at the back of the cavern, projecting those beams outward at me.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I'm looking at a light source. It feels like the light is hitting me. Is the light buried or is it projecting?
Well, that tension brings the entire system full circle back to our initial discussion of warm and cool colors.
Oh, the optics again.
Yep. Because those radiant yellows and ochres are surrounded by the receding cool greens, your brain interprets a cavernous, deep space. The architecture of the painting suggests the light source is buried deep within the background.
Okay, so it is in the back.
However, because those sharp yellow prismatic shards are inherently warm colors with high contrast, their wavelengths optically punch forward toward your retina.
It's a massive visual contradiction.
It is.
This space pulls you backward into the cavern, but the light itself rushes forward to engage directly with the physical space you are standing in.
It creates a perpetual push and pull. The painting never allows your eye to passively consume it. It constantly forces your brain to recalibrate the depth and the direction of the energy.
It's practically a workout for your visual cortex.
Honestly, it kind of is.
So let's take a step back and look at the visual journey we've just mapped out for you today. We started by looking at a flat image filled with abstract clashing colors that easily triggers that sense of gallery intimidation.
I don't get it feeling.
Exactly.
Mm.
But by breaking down the internal logic, we've learned how to successfully navigate the space.
We moved from seeing a chaotic, random surface to understanding a deeply intentional, three-dimensional, glowing architectural environment.
And more importantly, you now have a functional toolkit for decoding other complex abstract works.
You know what to look for now.
To look for the friction between the colors, the optical push and pull of an ochre and emerald turf war.
Right.
You know how to examine the physical tool marks, understanding how a flat palette knife can utilize opacity and transparency to carve out deep caverns of atmospheric depth.
You know how to read the surface.
You know to look for typographic visual anchors that give your eye a place to rest. And finally, you know how to spot the mechanics of light, looking for those prismatic intersections that generate a self-contained internal glow.
It really changes everything.
Abstract art isn't a test to find a hidden, recognizable picture. It's an invitation to understand how the artist is engineering an experience for your eyes.
It requires trusting the visual physics the artist has built for you.
Definitely.
But before we finish, I do want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. A question that pushes beyond the physical boundaries of the canvas itself.
Oh, I love a lingering, provocative question. Lay it on us.
So we've established that this painting functions as a window into a highly complex, fractured, three-dimensional world governed by its own laws of light and space.
Right, a self-contained universe.
But every window, no matter how deep, is contained by a frame. So I want you to consider the very edges of this canvas.
Okay.
What exactly happens just outside the physical frame?
Oh, wow.
Does this chaotic, clashing energy of emerald and ochre continue indefinitely in all directions, suggesting we are merely looking at a tiny cross-section of an endless universe of scraped prisms?
Oh.
Or is this glowing, cavernous canvas just a singular anomaly, the brightly lit eye of a much darker, much larger storm?